woe is me, they have seen what I've seen. Yes, my mama didn't let them make change on me. Put change on me. Yeah, woe is me, this is the product of ADD. Apothecary, not for me. I dream naturally. Yeah, woe is me, they have seen what I've seen.
Greetings and/or salutations, and welcome back to Imbibe Cinema. I'm your host, Jonathan C. Legat. I'm alongside
Michael Noens
and Tricia Legat.
In this episode, we're going to be discussing Ophelia, which is currently available on digital download as well as rental, while we imbibe the Drowning Ophelia. It's really sad when you're already starting to screw up the name of everything.
It's effective drink. That's
yes, it's potent. It's vodka. So it is found in a book, which is Shakespeare Not Stirred, Cocktails for Your Everyday Dramas. We found this drink. It has flowers floating just like Ophelia. It is very apropos. So Imbibe Cinema podcast is brought to you by the Blue Whiskey Independent Film Festival, otherwise known as BWIF. The festival seeks independent, character-driven films of all lengths, styles, and genres. So to learn more, visit us at bwiff.com. Once again, that is BWIFF.com. As for the film, I felt this was a great independent film, and I know Tricia was very excited about this one, this particular one. And to quote the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged, I love my Willie. But specifically from the first shot of this film, which is right out of the Sir John Everett Millier painting, you could tell that Claire McCarthy, who is the director of this film, was also extremely excited about bringing this particular film to the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see Hollywood Reporter did a little interview with the cast, well, members of the casting crew, and Claire McCarthy was there. Along with Tom Felton.
Laertes.
And yes.
Or
and
Malfoy.
Right.
We won't hold it against
By the way, I was watching this. I was like, man, he looks so
really
familiar.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah, he's not wearing green, and he's not a complete dick. He's not in Slytherin right now. Okay, that makes sense.
It was only until like earlier today I was like, that's where I know him from. Anyway.
You know, that's how good an actor he is.
Yes, there you go.
Like, you could be one of the most famous, hated characters all the time, and you're like, I just can't put my finger on you right now.
Naomi Watts was specifically talking about how Claire McCarthy would put Daisy and Naomi in a room and have them do like a bunch of rehearsal. Naomi even made a comment about how she was like, it brought me back to my high school theater days or something like that, like, you know, the theater.
He has to practice this? What?
Right. But she said, you know, it set up such a great connection, a great bonding opportunity for the two of them. And cool. I totally agree. I mean, they clearly had a great time on this film.
1000% agree. You know, especially Naomi Watts plays two characters. Absolutely riveting performance by her. And while this is, you know, we're going to be discussing the story much later, but the material, this was not as dark to a degree as like Hamlet is.
That depends
Right.
on who's putting it up and how they're presenting it.
That's true.
There's a lot like Shakespeare, like the Bible,
Ooh.
has a lot of room for interpretation. People will see one thing and they'll focus on that and they'll ignore other things. You can see a presentation of any of his plays and they can translate differently depending on who's doing it.
Mm-hmm. Even time period.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to this, and it's one of my all-time favorite plays of, you know, just, I mean, yes, my mother did read to us Hamlet as small children because she thought the pokey little puppy was redundant. I don't know. She had problems with with children's literature. Oh yeah. And then she produced 3 artistic, creative types who had avoidance to careers with health insurance, and it's all her fault. It really
Here
is.
we are today.
I love you, Mom. But she would read Hamlet to us when we were little. When it comes to the cast, one of the reasons I love Daisy Ridley in this is she has this great way of presenting herself being very strong and very vulnerable at the same time.
Yes.
I've been in love with Naomi since King Kong. I mean, King Kong, and it's sad because I don't remember the name of the character, and I think nobody does. I think everybody just calls it the Fay Ray character because Fay Ray
Played the
The
character.
original.
Exactly.
And it was
That's
so
how I know it as
noteworthy,
well.
right?
The
So
Fay Ray
noteworthy, nobody bothered to know the character's name. But in watching her do that, where she's just acting with a green screen, and just to bring so much humor and humanity in when she's all by herself and have a relationship with nothing. I mean, very few actors, I think, are capable of doing that, or doing it as eloquently as her, or Tom Hanks with a volleyball.
That's fair, though.
And I will say, there's a reverse ageism I find that is applied to Hamlet in any motion picture. And let me just pull up my data on this, because I was curious if I was correct, if I was just like, being prejudiced.
Whenever they release a major motion picture data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my my data for you all. 1948, they do production of Hamlet on film that stars Sir Laurence Olivier, who was 41 years old at the time, playing Hamlet. Then Mel Gibson plays him. Yeah, Mel Gibson plays him in 1990. He's 34, so a youngin'. And Kenneth Branagh plays Hamlet.
Youngin'.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh plays Hamlet at 36. Ethan Hawke plays him in 2000 at 30. And then David Tennant, who I love and is such a damn good actor, plays him at 38. And I'm sorry, Hamlet is not in his 30s.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet were in their teens, and we make a big deal of casting young for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why in God's name is Hamlet a middle-aged man? He's never, ever a middle-aged man. And so this is the first time we see somebody under 30, because George is 27.
Okay.
Okay.
He also looks young.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He's a
He
young
has
look
that
to him.
baby face.
Yeah.
So even if he was over 30, I'd give it to him on the fact that he looks the part. Nobody else did.
Now, here's one theory on that, and specifically, I know it's floating some of these actors' egos a little bit, but I think that there is a certain amount of chops that an actor must have to play Hamlet in Hamlet. Whereas I was blown away by George MacKay's performance in this, but he's not doing Hamlet's monologues. He's not doing Hamlet's soliloquies. He's not performing as Hamlet. This is a story about Ophelia.
This is Hamlet as a supporting role.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it shows off a lot of, because when you play Hamlet, there's so much to cover, right? You've got the fact that he's trying to decide what to do. His relationship with his mother is a big problem. His relationship with his uncle is a big problem. We've got Rosencrantz and Guildenstern for comic relief. I mean, there's a lot going on, and Ophelia is just one side note in what's going on.
So it's great that the coin flipped.
Right, because in this, you get to see how much Hamlet really does love Ophelia.
Yes.
And it's in the original text, but there's just so much text.
Yeah.
They say it's like the longest play that Shakespeare wrote, and I could be wrong. I really didn't check this, but it's one of the, if not one of the longest plays that he's ever that he wrote, and it with the shortest plot. It basically nothing happens.
Yeah. There's the
And
quote. You could lay
the
that
original
quote down.
Seinfeld. We're just sitting around talking about nothing.
Seinfeld.
Really, it's just nothing.
It's true. He is.
Nothing happens.
He talks a lot of action in the play. He talks a lot of action, but does nothing.
Right. So it's really interesting to have him as a supporting character because he actually does a lot more when he's not the center of the focus.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think every character in here, now to a degree, I would even say Clive Owen's character, not necessarily Clive Owen, but Clive Owen's character of Claudius, there was hints of comedy, as well as the hints, as well as the weight of things.
Like a lighter.
Yeah, there were light
lighter
moments
tones.
to Claudius.
Well, yeah, because they're
Towards the
they're
beginning.
human beings.
Yeah.
Right? And you're gonna, in order to really be afraid of somebody, you kind of have to be able to laugh at some point, or be able to feel for them on some level. You have to be some humanity to really fear them. I think some of the greatest villains are the scariest people are like John Lithgow, terrifying,
Yes.
Oh,
but adorable at the same time.
it's true.
He can do both.
Yes, he
Yeah.
can.
David Tennant,
Yes, also.
very scary.
Although, so we've kind of hit a lot on the actors specifically, but I kind of want to bring, turn this a little bit onto the crew. So, like specifically, Claire McCarthy, she actually did win a Directors to Watch from the Palm Springs International Film Festival for this film. what I found really fascinating when it comes to like the crew complement is that her and Denson Baker, who's the cinematographer, this was actually their 5th project together, and they actually have 2 that are in either pre or post production right now.
Oh wow!
That they have kind of found this cohesive meld between the 2 of them, and they work together on everything. And I'm not going to lie, the cinematography, the amount of symbolism, which we'll also get to when we get to the story, but like they did such a great job of telling the story through their shots, through everything in the background was just as stunning as everything that was going on in the foreground.
Well, specifically, kind of to comment on the moment when Ophelia is told that Hamlet has been killed by Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And she has like that breakdown in the she goes into like it's like a tree, like almost like a willow, and she kind of has a breakdown there. But like the break of shots that you show like time going by into the evening before she ends up on the top of
the parapets.
That whole there's like this one shot that's like it looks like sunset.
She's just standing in the middle of a field.
In this foggy field, very ghostly.
Yeah,
and it's all just carried through with the score to that moment.
And we bring up the score in this now. Granted, actually, here let me go to the cinematography moment that I found absolutely fascinating, and I know Tricia and I had discussed this previously, but the point where she has drowned herself, there's this beautiful shot where the screen is essentially flipped upside down, where she is floating in face up in the water, but she is down on the screen, and it's just such this beautiful mirror kind of thing going on, and just what an amazing shot that was to really drive home what's the weight of everything that's going on.
Yes, and the opening shot. Where you show her laying in the water,
and then
sinks
in,
and then she sings.
Yeah, the bit where she's laying there, and in one hand she's grasping onto a bouquet of flowers, and I think to myself, what drowning? Wouldn't it be like just floating away? Why are you grabbing? Like the death grip around these flowers is intense, but then we know there's so much symbolism about Ophelia and the flowers, and so, but that shot with her holding those flowers so tightly, stuck in my head. So then later, when she's drowning and she's grasping so tightly onto that bottle of nightshade, which is flower and poison, then it's like, oh my God, those are the flowers. That's it. That's why and visually I'm seeing it just through the cinematography. They're showing me it's the same thing. Yeah. And I love that. One of the things that got me cinematography wise was the use of the pillars in the court.
Yes.
And the fact that in the first scene we see of court, she's a child, and she's walking on the outside of the pillars. And court is within those pillars. She's walking on the outside because she's an outsider. She's not part of the court. And her brother's telling her to get out of there. And she kind of runs in between the pillars and sneaks under a table so she can see better. So now all of a sudden she's inside court. And then the last shot of her in court is her and Hamlet parting ways, and he is on the inside of the pillars and she's on the outside, and they walk parallel as they walk the length of court, and she's leaving and he's going to face his death. And the fact that they're just walking next to each other but not, and she's on the outside and he's on the end, and it's just like, oh, it's so beautifully shot. I love that.
Yeah. Beautifully shot, beautifully directed. That that there's so much attention to that detail,
and there's so much I know I missed because I only got to see it one time, and I'm like, I took ridiculous amount of notes, and John made fun of me.
I kept trying to pause.
And that's the funny thing too, that you mentioned that, because I rented this on Apple, and so I saw it on Thursday night. I think you guys did too.
Yep.
Saturday morning, I had like 4 hours left, as I like pulled it up on my Apple TV, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it again and take more notes. I actually did write a lot of notes the first time. But after I watched the movie, pretty much I was like furiously writing and trying to also make sense of like these one-word things that I wrote down as I was watching it. And so what I thought was so great was when I did sit down to take more notes, I made no notes. I just ended up watching the movie again.
That's exactly what happened to me. I did watch it a second time, and I was just wrapped.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie you could, which is interesting because I don't know if I would say the same thing about any film adaptation of Hamlet.
Yes, that
But
I would watch it
this,
twice within
I
48
would,
hours.
Exactly. This I would watch over and over again because I know that it's like, a beautifully delicious onion. There's just so many layers.
Yeah, and as you
Or
peel off
parfaits.
one,
Parfaits have
everybody loves parfaits.
Parfaits are probably a better use of delicious.
Yes. But no, it is interesting that the second time there were a lot more things that I was picking up on, specifically in the one that Tricia pointed out immediately after the movie finished. She went and grabbed the Shakespeare Hamlet off the shelf and was feverishly opening the book, and she opened it amazingly enough and scarily enough to the page she was thinking, but then kept second guessing and turning to more pages. But there is a speech specifically.
Here, let me pull it up for you.
Oh,
Where's
it's
my book?
right here.
It's one of my favorite speeches of Polonius's, which is the "'Tis mad, 'tis pity, 'tis true, 'tis mad." It's like, "Stay a while, man. Stay a while. I will be faithful." I'm going to be brief about this, but I'm going to talk another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love how Polonius talks. He cracks
rambles.
me up, and I had actually learned this speech a long time ago.
For speech team?
No.
Just
no.
'cause?
No, it was for a monologue for something.
Doubt that the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love.
What a fantastic transition to Stephen Price's awesome score.
Ooh, yes,
how we-
exactly.
we did that
And
on
so
purpose.
that was exactly what Tricia thought it was only in the very end of the movie, but the second time I watched it, because she found that quote and read it aloud to me while we were, continuing to imbibe other alcohol. The second time I watched it, that is actually echoed throughout all of the key moments. It's either in a whisper, right when she's about to take her own life with the nightshade. It's being whispered. That particular sentence is being whispered, and then again, as Hamlet is going on, walking towards his death, and she is walking out of the court, that is actually being sung. And so the score to this was just dripping with amazingness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Stephen Price. Just a little bit on him, because I've loved his music.
Baby Driver.
I mean, obviously, I have to mention his score for Gravity,
Yes.
which I believe he won the Oscar for as well. Of like a 3D score to go with the fact that the movie was 3D and constant like that spinning feel in the music. I mean, it's remarkable. And then if you guys have watched Our Planet on Netflix,
Yep.
incredible score. That's also him. And going into this, I mean, it's very different. Very, very different than stuff I've heard of his before. But it does make me question, especially like the use of that in the score. I wonder, did that originate with Claire McCarthy, or did that originate with him, or was that something that was born between, like a conversation between the two of them? Because the way that I felt about it afterwards, which is, apropos, those lyrics haunt the movie.
Oh God, yeah.
They feel like a haunting of over the entire story, which I think is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant.
Right, and that is Hamlet's love letter that Polonius is reading to Ophelia, that Ophelia had surrendered to her father, and he's reading back to the queen to show how Hamlet is crazy, but he's crazy in love. One of the reasons, and mind you, I had gone on this weird tangent about how I love Hamlet, and it's the longest play about nothing, and my mom read it to me. But reason I love Hamlet, of all of Shakespeare's plays, I don't think I actually got to the point, which is, they laugh because it's common. What is the fact that I love that every character in this is motivated by love, or a version, either a twisted version of love. But I mean, obviously, Hamlet loves his father. Ophelia loves her father. Hamlet loves his mother. Claudius loves his mother too. Even Horatio, it's a friend. It's a platonic love. We love Horatio.
And I want to talk about Horatio.
Oh
Thank
my
you. I
God,
was about to
yes.
say that because, like, there, when you had made the comment, John, about how, like every cast member, they showed up and brought their A++ game. They clearly were loving everything that they were doing. I mean, down to your smallest characters. I felt like
The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the Guard.
fully developed. Obviously, there's source material, but I mean, fully developed in the short amount of time that we get to know them. And I mean, Horatio does have actually quite a bit of screen time, but I loved Devon Terrell. Yeah, his Horatio, fantastic.
Yeah.
In the second time that I saw it, I didn't get to see him in the end.
But him getting beaten in the background.
No, John was laughing at me. I was
like,
taking notes at that time. He
poor
looks over and
Horatio.
I'm writing, poor Horatio.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
First time I actually cared about
So
you.
sad.
Poor Horatio.
Because the thing, and again, in once we come back from our break, we'll really discuss kind of the story and
Yes.
where it differs from the source material, if you will. But it was heartbreaking to see Horatio just getting beaten in the background, as opposed to having his moment in the sun, which is literally like the whole point of the Horatio character.
Right?
The only last person that I would like to bring up is Massimo Cantini Parini, who is the costume designer.
One more time
He
again?
did. It's Massimo Cantini Parini.
That's an awesome name.
It is just so fun to say. The costumes in this were absolutely amazing, and Massimo did like the Brothers Grimm or Talk of Tales costume designs as well, and both of those kind of had this element of modern-esque, but at the same time really hitting period piece, if you will, and especially like the ballroom scene where it's the masquerade ball and just everything that he did. It was absolutely fantastic seeing that costume design specifically.
I don't find myself noticing the costume design in like a particular moment in my first watch, but the moment where they're standing in front of the tapestry and Hamlet walks up and walks over and Ophelia and him are having this back and forth, that moment when we move back and we see the whole group. What I love is that there's like this gold that's in the costume for literally everybody except
for
Ophelia.
Ophelia.
And it makes your eye go immediately to her. The fact that she's so muted in that shot.
Stark contrast. That's good costume design.
I realized, I was like, wait a minute, everybody's got a little gold to them.
You know what? We're going to take a half minute here. My glass is empty, and so we're going to fill up these glasses and imbibe a little bit more after this.
Foxhole Creative is a production company and venue in Chicago's Lincoln Square neighborhood. Host your next private event, screening, meeting, or project at their versatile space. Their production team is the solution to your creative needs. Whether you need a commercial or online promo video for your business, an exhibit set up for an event or festival, or a boutique crew to shoot your next short or feature film, they've got you covered. Step into their sound booth for the perfect voiceover recording and work with them for all your post-production needs. Learn more at thefoxhole.com.
You're listening to Imbibe Cinema. Once again, I am Jonathan C. Legat, and I am here with...
Michael Noens.
And Tricia Legat.
And we have been discussing the film Ophelia. Do you like listening to our dulcet tones? Please subscribe to get new episodes as soon as they become available. Rate and or leave us a review to help our show reach that larger audience. And you can also follow Imbibe Cinema on Facebook and or the Twitters. I really think that what we need to discuss now is the script at large, the adaptation, the novel by Lisa Klein, and where it differs from the Bard's original work, where it's similar. And just the script and all of the symbolism, it's dripping with symbolism, and everything that we've tried to discuss, but I reined you in, so I apologize. So, free for all. Trish, go.
Okay, so I've usually just seen very similar versions of Hamlet. I mean, yes, you can make it present day like Ethan Hawke did, or, well, just keep getting older Hamlets. It really doesn't.
He's 90. This young girl and I are in love.
It's a testament to their acting range, I guess.
To be or not to be.
Clearly, I'm going to be dead tomorrow.
Oh, I thought I was looking in a mirror.
This Yorick skull is mine. Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow, we really...
See, that's a different take. Obviously, the main story that everyone sees is It's a good story. It's a great story. However, as many Shakespeare nerds have pointed out, there are so many nods or hints in the text to the fact that Ophelia is pregnant.
Or whether she is.
Yeah. And there are just so many that, like, if you just in the first or early on in the show or the film, if you had just had her hold her stomach for a second, all of a sudden all those hints would probably become very noticed by the audience, just with a visual cue. All those little jokes about conceiving will suddenly be like, oh, wait a minute. And in her drowning sequence, when she is drowning, they talk about the flowers that she's holding. One of them being dead men's fingers, and they are called dead men's fingers. They look more like
phallic.
Yeah, I would say members, male.
Phallic.
They look like penises, and so
We can't say that on the podcast.
But also that she has daisies, unhappy love is a representative. So unhappy love and all that. But more importantly, if we get to Ophelia's speech about flowers, so I'm just going to jump there.
Okay.
So we go Bard versus book, or in this case, film.
There's fennel for you and columbines.
Okay, and those are directed to Gertrude. Those are symbols of adultery. So she's calling out the fact that she knows.
You a hoe.
Yeah.
Faux show.
Exactly. Go ahead.
There's rue for you, and here's something for me.
Now, this is the most important flower in my mind. Rue symbolizes regret, and she's directing this toward Claudius, and she's saying, I hear some...
You should regret killing your brother. You
pretty much. You're going to regret how this ends. And some for me. It's the only thing that she says about herself. And she has a lot of regret, you would think. However, rue is also used as a poison to help induce miscarriages at that time. So it could, if you took too much, it could kill you, but it's not something that you would use to kill yourself. It's a terrible way to die. Most people would use hemlock or nightshade, something like that. So the fact that she's mentioning rue, which is specifically something you would use to kill off an unborn child, and some for me, there's that double meaning. So it's another way of going, look, I'm pregnant.
She immediately follows it with saying, we may call it herb of grace, O Sundays. That's...
Right.
Really sad then, especially if she knows that she's taking it to do that. Oh, you must wear your rue with deference.
Right. So she's saying, yeah, but you're wearing yours for a different reason than mine.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
There's a daisy.
Yeah, daisy is another symbol of unhappy love.
I would give you some violets, but they all withered when my father died.
Now, this is another one that I think is interesting, is because violets are supposed to symbolize faithfulness. And the fact that, maybe the only faithful person, a loyal person that she considered in the court, because Laertes isn't there at that time, is her father. And so there's nobody that she can trust. And the fact that Hamlet's the one who killed her father, spoiler. So the fact that that happened, then we've broken a trust, obviously.
Yeah.
So the fact that she might feel all alone and that there's no one she can trust.
They took it almost completely line for line in this film. There was some movement, if you will, because of the undertones that they were trying to set. Whether this is the novel itself or the adaptation, I'm judging it's kind of a little bit of both, as well as just Claire's directing. Getting the subtext of all of the conversations, and it was one of the things that was absolutely beautiful to watch between Hamlet and Ophelia, is when they're communicating with each other. We've seen scenes where he jokes about her being a fish because she's in the pond alone. Now she's clothed, but at the same time he's like, "Hey, come on, up on the shore," and he talks about her being a fish, and then later he literally goes up to Polonius and like, "Oh, he's trying to sell me a fish," and there's a whole speech in the actual play of Hamlet where Polonius is going like, I am not a fishmonger," but to us it makes more sense because we saw a scene that is not in the play of her being in this water. And so there's all these beautiful things where they take the rich text of the bard, but they never actually go full Hamlet. They don't go full Shakespeare. They don't use all the text except in the composing
Score.
in the score. But at the same time, they lace in all these beautiful elements
Right.
that if you know the
Right.
text for
If
Hamlet,
you're a nerd,
you're able to. If you're a nerd,
You're a nerd and you're geeking out about it. And I know during the break I talked about how I compare this in a way to What Lies Beneath, which is a film that, oh God, was it Zemeckis that
It
did
was
that?
Zemeckis.
Zemeckis that did that. And it was an homage to Hitchcock. So if you love Hitchcock movies, you're going, oh my God, oh wait, that's from Notorious, and that's from Rear Window, and that's from
Vertigo.
Right. There's a little bit of everything laced in, and in this, there are not only nods to the text without being overt. That if you know it, you're like, oh, I get where you're going. Or if you know Shakespeare in general, he loves to do the whole like, you dead? Nah, you're not dead. Oh, well, no, really dead, kind of thing. And he loves to play with poison. It's done in other plays. So. I love that there's a love of Shakespeare, and that we've just broadened our horizons a bit, and we've gone a little out of the box on that. And then one of the things I love is they assigned Claudius the lines that are, hey, can I sum this all up in one line? And
Yeah, that's true.
And so after the sword fight in the courtyard between Hamlet and Claudius, there's this great line Claudius has as he's defeated Hamlet. He says, "You debate what to do next, and meanwhile you do next to nothing." And I'm like, "Yep, that's the play. That's it. You just summed it up
You
in one
debate
line."
what to do the entire time that
You
the play is going on, but you don't actually do anything.
Right? And it's like, that's Claudius's burn. You waited 5 hours to kill me. Lazy. Millennial. I don't know.
Wow.
No, I don't know what that
We just Gen X'd this.
We did. And I'm so sorry because I don't
He was
even
born
know
in
what that means.
1480.
Youngins. All right. So another line that Claudius has is he says, the better man does not always win.
Yes.
And that's true.
Those of you who do know Hamlet, and even those who don't, the way that this kind of just interweaves scenes that are off stage, really, for the play itself, by interweaving them and by how they're designed, you could actively, and I actively watch this film and went, yeah, I'd buy that this is all just stuff that couldn't go into the 5-hour play.
Well,
That making this an 8-hour play, would be a way of getting all of this incorporated, and it all makes sense.
Well,
it's
and that
well written to that.
point of view, right? Hamlet has a different point of view what's going on than Ophelia, and it's like all those. One of the stories types of stories I really love is when you take a different point of view on something that everybody kind of accepts as normal. So if you are hearing the wicked stepmother's point of view instead of Cinderella, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's the same story. But this is a completely different story. Yeah, Maleficent would be a very recent example. So now symbolism is where I get all super geeked out. I'll hit 2 to 3 big things that I liked. One, obviously flowers, not just the symbolism behind the meaning of every flower, but the fact that all the other ladies in waiting, they all have jewels.
Yes.
And she has flowers. And it's a status thing. The flowers kind of end up being used all over the place, whether they're in Gertrude's bath or they're being used to make remedies or poisons by the healer. And then there are 2 big things. One central, I think, if you're going to go with the biggest amount of symbolism or foreshadowing in this film, it's got to be around knowledge. And they hit knowledge so many different ways. We start with Ophelia's first time in court. They're talking about Adam and Eve, and because Hamlet's going to college.
Snake versus the apple. Yep.
Right, and so they're talking about the sin of knowledge. And Ophelia pipes up and says, I think she thinks the apple is quite innocent in the whole affair.
Yeah.
And I love that. And then it's used again. There's a snake when she is going to the witch / healer, and the murderer of the king is leaving. Yeah. She is hiding, and she doesn't see who it is, but she sees the murderer leave. And as they are crossing in front of her, there's a black snake that crosses in front of her feet. I think knowledge pretty much represents danger, because we see it over and over again with the Adam and Eve story, with Ophelia not permitted to read and yet Laertes teaches her anyway, and how she witnesses Gertrude and Claudius getting it on, and the burden of that knowledge, that Hamlet's school takes him away from her, and that in turn kind of puts their love in danger if you were to go there. The witch's knowledge of poison and remedy causes a whole bunch of issues. Hamlet refers to a sharp point within when he's talking to Claudius about how Claudius has a sword to his throat, and he goes, "What my sharp point lies within." It's like my brain is where I can really hurt you, my smarts. Gertrude warns Ophelia not to look at the witch's face when she goes there, and she does it anyway.
Well, that one, I mean,
yeah,
that's just dumb.
Knowledge
like,
will hurt you.
Go get me some more tonic, but definitely don't look at the twin me.
Right. So madness. Let's talk madness.
This is one of those areas where, especially when it comes to Ophelia and the text of the Bard, there are so many interpretations that can happen.
Right.
You can have it where she is mad, she isn't mad, she's mad because she's with child, she's mad just because it's a Tuesday.
Yeah, and there's the foils thought that Laertes is a foil for Hamlet, right? Because Hamlet's father is murdered, and how he seeks to come to closure. And then Laertes, the same thing happens, and how he approaches it. But the madness parallel is really between Hamlet and Ophelia. Does Hamlet pretend to go mad so he can figure everything out and take his time, or does he really go mad, and it's part of why he's stalling, is he's just lost his mind?
Yeah.
And Ophelia, did she go mad because the man that she loved kind of betrayed her, killed her father, and she's got nowhere to go, she's pregnant, all kinds of craziness, no pun intended? Or does she fake madness because she sees what Hamlet did? He's mad, I'll go mad, and that way I can get away with, maybe nobody knowing that I'm pregnant.
That
and
specifically is one of the things that I found so rich about this film. Neither of them has gone mad. They're using, again, like I had mentioned previously, those scenes that we don't see in Hamlet, the play, to communicate with each other in a way that they say things that the other understands, to be, rich bonus subtext. But at the same time, we, now being the audience, are able to go, oh, okay, they're communicating in a sense of code. In the play itself and in this film, there is a scene where Claudius and Polonius use Ophelia as bait to try to understand, is Hamlet actually crazy, or, is it a ruse? And they did a very good job of having this subtext that they were whispering to each other under their breath, the actual text, as opposed to those moments when they would then yell out the subtext that makes them seem crazy.
Ophelia's such an amazing character. She's such a strong character, and I think people kind of get giddy about the mad scene. They're like, "Oh, I get to go mad," and that becomes the focus, or maybe it's the focus for all kinds of reasons. But I think one of the strongest, one of the best, most challenging scenes is this scene where Ophelia has to be in front of the man she loves and pretty much try to ask him, like, what's going on, without coming across the fact that I'm totally I'm betraying you right now by having everybody listen in. There's so much going on. This scene is usually so traumatic to watch because it's heartbreaking, and yet in this, I love that madness is their secret code. Yeah. We think, having seen it, it's like, I wish we'd seen more of it being a secret code that's yelled out loud, where the audience could be like, oh, I know what you mean.
That one is trying to pass a lot of information. She is imparting the knowledge that Claudius killed Hamlet's father. She has proof. She just got that proof. And so she's having to tell him that dude, your uncle's kind of an a-hole and killed your father. I have all the proof. And so there, like I said, there is a lot of information that has to get passed between the two of them, and I might have to take a third pass at it.
No, I want to see it again. Like, because that was one of the things that I was like, oh, I love that madness is a secret code. And that it's not just in that scene, it's in the when the players come to do the play to, catch the conscience of the king.
Beautiful.
Right? So that they do that and then it's not limited to just Hamlet's official madness scenes, but Ophelia's as well, is the fact that when she goes mad and in front of Claudius and Gertrude and Laertes with the flowers, and she pretends to go mad in front of them to escape. In this version, when she does this, she's hinting to Horatio in code the whole time.
Yeah.
Dig me up. I'm not going to be dead.
Yeah.
Not so much code that, please dig me up. Dig me up actually tonight. Can you make sure
before
you're
I
there?
am cold. Before
Do
I am cold.
that tonight. Do you get me? I'm not nudge, wink.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Got it?
Get the timing on that.
Yeah. No, that.
Don't buck me on this.
Yeah, but again, so I also like that. Now, granted, it's a nod to a completely another Shakespearean play. There is the pretty much Juliet Ian ruse where she takes a poison that mimics death but mocks it.
Well, and they both think the other one's dead, just like Romeo and Juliet.
Only Hamlet has this opportunity to walk away and can't.
Yep.
Chooses not to. I shouldn't say can't. He chooses not to. Yeah. And that in my view was the moment where I'm like, this whole vengeance. I mean, that's the poison.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that
he can't, he's already taken it. He can't walk away from it. And when she says, I think she just says, goodbye. My love.
Yeah.
Like that's her, I tried, I'm leaving, goodbye. And then her departure from the madness.
Yeah. And so to talk about the, again, differences between The Bard and the movie, that Gertrude is actually the one who slays Claudius.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Loved
in the
it.
play, we're all, Hamlet, after taking the poison to the arm, realizes what's going on. The queen drinks a poison, and then all of a sudden, him in a, finally violent rage, he goes, oh, I know I've spent 5 acts kind of just dicking around here, but now I'm finally going to become a man of action. No, I like the fact that throughout this, Hamlet still is not the man of action. He's just jousting or jousting. He's doing combat with Laertes because
He's been challenged.
Fuck all. Yeah, he's been challenged and he's got an honor
thing.
thing. But that Gertrude is actually the one who's like, oh my fucking Christ, you slayed my husband, you killed my son. Fuck this, you're done. And then afterwards, she's like, yeah, there's just nothing left. And then drinks poison.
Right. And then when you see like the layout, if you were to come upon the scene later, if you were
Yes,
one
exactly.
of the CSI people that show up on the crime scene.
If you're the Norwegians coming to this.
Yes, in the mass murder. And you're like, oh, well, it's Hamlet's sword in Claudius, so obviously he killed Claudius.
He's the one who did it, and they're the ones who perpetuate the story.
She must have drank poison by, like, they could draw their own conclusions.
Hence where the play story comes from, and the reason that Ophelia's story, it's like, you think you know my story, but you don't actually know my story.
Yeah, her opening line, and it was high time that I should tell you my story myself. This is right after she sinks into the water, and the title is revealed. I mean, I was hooked between the music, between the script, the visuals, everything. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm you got me. What I loved about this moment was I was like, I always look at Hamlet as, oh yeah, Hamlet is, the Shakespearean tale. What I loved about this introduction was this happened and Shakespeare did his interpretation of it, but that's not what happened.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what really happened because she even refers to it as myth.
Yeah, specifically because Horatio is being beaten to a pulp in the background. Like, we don't have really anyone left alive at the end of that movie to tell any story other than what, as Tricia pointed out, a CSI person would be like, yeah, this is how it went down. And that's the story that Shakespeare writes.
How many versions of Hamlet have I seen? Too many, maybe. But I've never gotten emotionally attached to Horatio. He's always been like, oh, you're just with the band. He's just that guy that Hamlet talks to on occasion so the audience can hear what Hamlet's thinking. He's just the guy that's like, well, is he more than just, really, there's not much to Horatio that I've seen portrayed before. He's always been referred to as this true friend, and I was like, yeah, okay. And here, in this film, he's everybody's true friend. He's a brave, loyal, amazing guy that both Ophelia and Hamlet lean on to help them get through it. And oh my God, I love the way they portray him, and I love the way that Laertes is portrayed in this film as well. That you have that relationship between brother and sister, and it's simple. It's just in using him teaching her to read, you've created this whole relationship that is really touching.
So in the band, instead of like a groupie or like a backup singer, he's like the
Roadie.
drummer. He's like keeping beat.
Yeah, he's Ringo. Two more things that I'd like to say. One, I find it interesting the use of fathers in the film. The fact that we get the king alive for more than any other.
Who says next
version.
to
Yeah,
nothing?
I actually, the second time, that's the one time I paused it. I was like, wait a minute, he just died. And it's over a half hour into the movie. And I was like, wow.
Right. But he's like window dressing. And Polonius, they hit on Polonius is like, his big to thine own self be true speech. They hit on that. But other than that, he's background. So the king doesn't get a voice really at all. And Polonius is very downplayed. So there really is no father figure present actively in either Ophelia or Hamlet's life in the film. And then the other thing that I found interesting, the sisters. I love the idea of the fact that they're yin and yang, that they both been with Claudius. And
They don't know that though.
Well,
one does, but only because he just married.
Yes, and the fact that he is, he is the reason, the untimely end to both of their children, and the one depends on the other, and you even see like the witch is usually, and what's her character name? You know it.
Mechtild.
Yeah, she is usually in black or dark colors, and Gertrude in white.
Yes.
And especially in that last sequence when you see them,
she's bringing in the Norwegian soldiers.
Yeah, and that's that beautiful sequence where she sees what Gertrude's doing, and all of a sudden, all her "oh my God, my sister's such an annoyance" just drops, and it's "oh my God, no."
She's the older sister, and Mechtild is the older sister.
And
Gertrude's the
Gertrude
baby.
mentions that she had an older sister to protect her.
Yeah. Even though I think they're twins, so like we're talking like elder by like minutes.
They are like night and day. Yeah. Just like their costuming and their presentation. Yeah. They are night and day in what they value and how they react to situations.
Yes.
And yet both of them can't say no to Claudius. That's the one thing they really have in common.
All right, there's something that I wanna throw out there. We here at Imbibe Cinema, we love the movies that we're watching. Hopefully,
we're lovers.
We're here to be advocates for the independent film that we are talking about. So I wanted to just read a couple of highlight reviews of people who trashed this movie.
Okay. Oh,
and
good.
I wanted
Good.
to know
I'm not going to lie.
You think?
Yes. Tricia and I were having a quick debate on this, and then she did a quick review of some of them. I had actually read some of the reviews, the trashed reviews, and I'm like, fuck these assholes.
Well, everybody, it depends. Maybe you have a bad day. You look at it from a different point of view.
Or you're
Maybe
just a fucking
the
troll.
only way to see Shakespeare is the one way you've only seen this play done. Just like the one way Star Wars is done is the only way Star Wars is going to be done.
I have done repertory theater. Now, when I did repertory theater at Illinois Shakespeare Festival, shout out Illinois Shakes, I was, of course, third spearman on the left. No real parts.
I'm sure you were brilliant.
Yeah, I was brilliant as third spearman. But there were people who would sit there with the Riverside or the Arden, book in their lap, and you could actually hear them, like when lines were cut or lines were told a different way. They'd be like, they did it wrong. Put the book down, just watch the fucking show.
All right, so let's start with Chicago Reader. Says the picture is nowhere near as memorable as other controversial twists on misunderstood women of history and fiction.
What?
Well, could they give an example?
Yeah, I was about to say, what other...
I could read the full review, and maybe they do go into it, but that's the highlight.
Oh, okay.
These are
Like,
Rotten
I'm sure
Tomatoes
they're-
highlights.
To me, that person from Chicago Reader, God love you, Chicago Reader, was having a bad day. That makes no sense to me.
Maybe they never liked Hamlet.
That's possible, but that's
There's a prejudice
This
there
is a really
implied.
strong female film, outright from start to finish.
It's from Real Views. There wasn't much to Hamlet's Ophelia, and there's not a lot more to this production's version of her.
Yeah, I don't think they like Hamlet. I think that's somebody who just doesn't like the play.
This is from the Australian Financial Review. I don't know why they are reviewing movies.
Is that like Fox and Hound going to review a Julia Roberts movie?
Oh, yeah, it's Notting Hill. Which I actually just watched for the first time, so it's
just
very
saw
fresh.
Notting
Hill? Wow.
It's
Well,
very fresh in my brain.
See, then now you know
It's
I
Horse
stalked
and
you.
Hound.
Horse and Hound.
Horse
Sorry.
and
Oh, yeah, I was about to say Fox.
Are there any
What's Fox in
horses in your film? Well, it took place in space. The first casualty is Shakespeare's richness of language, which was obviously judged too complicated to be imposed
this
upon
asshole.
a generation brought up on social media.
Okay, I would say that person is very full of themselves.
Extremely.
Or just full of self-like. You know,
Yeah.
you like yourself a lot.
Or is way too
That's
much
like
of a
an
Shakespeare fan.
That's and if they're going to use social media, then like that right there, that statement is like a mental selfie. They just love talking about how smart they are.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm going to do my own plug. No Fear Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who
Tricia's
really
favorite.
wants to get a lot out of the text, because at least Elizabethan language is not something that is... The slang is gone. Nobody knows it. And so it's one of those things where you get extra stuff out of the text. Like there are some
can
things you
understand
can totally
our
follow, because if you read enough Shakespeare, you're going to follow it, right? But then there are things that even slip past. I mean, usually it's the filthy stuff that you lose out on because you're not aware of the slang.
Oh, he's
so
body of sin.
I would very much recommend it if you really enjoy filthy stuff, because Shakespeare's got a lot of it.
Yeah, and to me, again, what I like about this is right off the bat, Ophelia tells you, look, you think you know this story, but that's myth. That's somebody else's interpretation of
Flowery
this.
language.
That's not what we actually said, okay? Let me tell you what we actually said.
That was it. Those were my top three.
Okay,
So-
all right. Yeah. One thing that we really do appreciate is our listeners, and thank you for guys for choosing this podcast and supporting specifically independent films. As you can see, we are very big advocates of independent films. So keep your ear out for our next episode, which we will be talking about Hearts Beat Loud, starring Nick Offerman and Kiersey Clemens. The Drowning Ophelia can be found on our website, along with a couple beautiful shots of it. It is a very beautiful drink.
It is. Goes down nice and easy.
It comes back with a vengeance. To check out our show notes or drop us a note, visit us on imbibecinema.com. And once again, I'm Jonathan C. Legat, and thanks for imbibing with us. Cheers.
My mama didn't let them make change on me. Put change on me. Yeah, woe is me. This is the product of ADD. Apothecary, not for me. I dream naturally. Yeah, woe is me. They have seen what I've seen.